Let me begin by saying something that may challenge you. The greatest project you will ever work on is not your job, not your business, not your relationships. It is you. And until you understand that, you will spend your life building everything else while neglecting the very foundation that must sustain it. You see, many people are busy, but they are not effective. They are active, but they are not progressing. Why? Because they have never stopped long enough to rebuild themselves. They are operating on outdated beliefs, broken identities, and borrowed expectations. And anything built on a faulty foundation is destined to collapse. Rebuilding yourself begins with a decision to take responsibility for your life, not your past, not what people did to you, not the environment you were born into, but your response to it. Responsibility is the key to transformation. When you accept responsibility, you take back power. And when you take back power, you regain control over your future. Now hear this carefully. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. Many people have been conditioned to believe that putting themselves first is wrong, so they spend their lives pouring into others while running empty themselves. But you cannot give what you do not have. If your mind is weak, your contribution will be weak. If your spirit is broken, your influence will be broken. You must learn to invest in yourself intentionally. That means guarding your mind. Your mind is the womb of your future. Whatever you consistently allow into your mind will eventually manifest in your life. If you fill it with fear, doubt, and negativity, then your life will reflect those things. But if you fill it with purpose, discipline, and vision, then your life will begin to align with that. Rebuilding yourself also requires separation. There are some environments, some conversations, and even some people that you must distance yourself from, not because you hate them, but because you value your growth. You cannot become a new person while staying committed to old patterns. Transformation demands sacrifice. And let me be very clear, growth is uncomfortable. Rebuilding yourself will stretch you. It will challenge your habits, confront your excuses, and expose your weaknesses. But that discomfort is not your enemy. It is your indicator that change is taking place. Pain is often the price of progress. You must also rediscover your purpose. You are not created to exist. You are created to function with intention. When you don't know your purpose, you will misuse your time, your energy, and your life. But when you understand why you were created, everything begins to align. Your decisions become clearer. Your focus becomes sharper. Your life gains direction. And this is why you must spend time alone, not in isolation, but in reflection. Solitude is where clarity is born. It is where you hear your true thoughts without the noise of the world. It is where you reconnect with who you are meant to be, not who people expect you to be. Rebuilding yourself also means disciplining your daily habits. Your life is not shaped by what you do occasionally. It is shaped by what you do consistently. Small disciplines repeated daily create extraordinary results over time. Wake up with intention. Speak with purpose. Act with consistency. Do not underestimate the power of small changes. You don't need to fix your entire life overnight. You simply need to start where you are, with what you have, and commit to becoming better every day. One decision at a time. One habit at a time. One step at a time. And let me say this to you. Stop comparing your journey to others. Comparison is the thief of focus. When you look at others, you lose sight of your own assignment. You were not designed to be a copy. You were created to be an original. Your path is unique and your timing is intentional. Focus on becoming the best version of you. There is something inside of you that has not yet been fully expressed. There is potential within you that is waiting to be activated. But it will not happen by accident. It requires intentional effort. It requires commitment. It requires the courage to confront yourself honestly and the discipline to improve consistently. Rebuilding yourself is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong process. Every level of your life will require a new version of you. And if you refuse to grow, you will eventually become incompatible with your own future. So I challenge you today, make a decision to rebuild, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Start with your mindset, align your habits, clarify your purpose, protect your focus. Because when you become whole, When you become disciplined, when you become aligned, you will not need to chase success. Success will begin to respond to who you have become. Remember this, your life is not waiting on opportunity. Your life is waiting on you. Let me begin by telling you something that may be difficult to accept, but it is absolutely necessary. If you are ever going to rebuild your life, you must take full responsibility for your life. Not partial responsibility, not selective responsibility, not responsibility only for the things that worked out well. I am talking about complete, unreserved ownership of where you are, who you have become, and where you are going. You see, one of the greatest tragedies in life is not failure. It is living a life where you constantly shift blame. Blame is a subtle form of surrender. The moment you blame something or someone else for your condition, you give away your authority to change it. You hand over your power to circumstances, to people, to systems, and even to your past. And once you give away that power, you become stuck, waiting for something outside of you to fix what only you have been given the responsibility to correct. Many people today are experts at explaining why their lives are the way they are. They can give you a detailed account of their upbringing, the mistakes others made, the opportunities they never had, and the challenges they faced. And while those things may be true, they are not the point. The question is not what happened to you. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Responsibility is the bridge between your current reality and your desired future. Without it, there is no progress. You cannot move forward while constantly looking backward for someone to blame. At some point, maturity demands that you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I do now?" You must understand this. Your life is your assignment. No one else was created to live it for you. No one else was given your potential, your gifts, your capacity, or your purpose, which means no one else can be held accountable for what you do with them. Even if someone influenced you, hurt you, or misled you, they still cannot determine your destiny unless you allow them to. Taking responsibility does not mean denying that pain exists. It does not mean pretending that injustice never happened. It means you refuse to let those experiences define your future. It means you make a decision that your past will be a reference, not a residence. You learn from it, but you do not live in it. There are people who are years behind in their lives, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lacked ownership. They are still emotionally tied to events that happened long ago. They are still waiting for apologies that may never come. They are still hoping someone will come and fix what has already been placed in their hands to fix. But listen carefully. No one is coming. That may sound harsh, but it is liberating. Because the moment you realize that no one is coming to rescue you, you stop waiting and you start acting. You stop depending and you start developing. You stop complaining and you start creating. Responsibility is not a burden. It is a privilege. It is the ability to respond. That is what the word literally means, responsibility. It is your ability to respond to life, regardless of what life presents to you, and that ability is one of the greatest gifts you have been given. When you take responsibility, you stop reacting emotionally to everything and start responding intentionally. You begin to evaluate your decisions, your habits, your mindset, and your direction. You become aware that your life is a product of your choices, not just your circumstances. And this is where transformation begins. You start asking different questions. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of saying, "I can't because of them," you say, "What can I do with what I have?" Instead of saying, "This is not fair," you say, "How do I grow through this?" Do you see the shift? It is subtle, but it is powerful. Because when you change your perspective, you change your position. And when you change your position, you change your possibilities. Taking responsibility also means being honest with yourself. And honesty is one of the most difficult things for many people. It is easier to blame others than to confront your own weaknesses. It is easier to make excuses than to admit you lack discipline. It is easier to point fingers than to take ownership. But growth requires truth. You must be willing to look at your life and say, there are areas where I need to improve. Not in a way that condemns you, but in a way that challenges you. Self-awareness is the foundation of self-development. If you cannot identify what needs to change, you cannot change it. And let me tell you something else. Responsibility requires discipline, because once you accept responsibility, you can no longer afford to be careless. You can no longer live randomly. You can no longer drift through life hoping things will work out. You must become intentional. Your time becomes valuable. Your decisions become deliberate. Your habits become strategic. You begin to understand that every action has a consequence, and every choice is shaping your future. So you become more mindful of what you do daily, because you realize that your future is not created in a moment. It is created in the small, consistent decisions you make every day. Taking responsibility also changes how you see failure. Failure is no longer something that defines you. It becomes something that refines you. Instead of avoiding it, you learn from it. Instead of being discouraged by it, you grow through it. You begin to see failure not as an end, but as feedback. And this is important because many people are stuck, not because they failed, but because they refused to take responsibility for their failure. They blamed others, they blamed timing, they blamed circumstances, and in doing so, they missed the lesson. But when you take responsibility, every failure becomes a teacher. Every mistake becomes an opportunity to improve. Every setback becomes a setup for a comeback. Now understand this clearly. Taking responsibility is not a one-time decision. It is a daily commitment. Every day, you must choose to own your attitude, your actions, and your outcomes. There will be days when it is easier to complain, days when it is easier to blame, days when it is easier to give excuses. But those are the moments when responsibility matters the most, because your future is not determined by your best days. It is determined by how you respond on your worst days. And this is where your strength is built. You begin to develop resilience. You begin to develop discipline. You begin to develop a mindset that is not easily shaken by circumstances, because you know that regardless of what happens, you still have the power to respond. And that is what makes you dangerous in a good way. A person who takes full responsibility for their life cannot be easily controlled. They cannot be easily discouraged. They cannot be easily stopped, because they are not waiting for permission, they are not dependent on validation, and they are not limited by excuses. They move with purpose. They act with intention. They grow with consistency. So I challenge you, stop looking outside and start looking within. Stop asking who is responsible and start realizing that you are, not because everything is your fault, but because everything is now your responsibility. And once you embrace that, everything changes. Your mindset shifts. Your behavior improves. Your focus sharpens. Your life begins to move in a new direction. Because at the end of the day, your life will not be defined by what happened to you. It will be defined by how you responded to it. And that response is your responsibility. Let me take you deeper into a principle that many people hear, but very few truly practice. You must invest in yourself intentionally, not occasionally, not when it is convenient, not when you feel motivated, but as a deliberate, consistent, lifelong commitment. You see, the greatest asset you possess is not your money, not your connections, not your opportunities. It is you. And yet, ironically, most people spend more time developing everything around them than they do developing themselves. They will invest in clothes, in gadgets, in appearances, in entertainment, but neglect their mind, their discipline, their character, and their growth. And then they wonder why their life is not producing the results they desire. You must understand this clearly. Your life will only grow to the level that you grow. If you are not developing, then nothing connected to you can truly advance. Your business cannot outgrow your mindset. Your relationships cannot outgrow your emotional maturity. Your results cannot outgrow your discipline. So if you want more in life, you must first become more. Investing in yourself begins with your mind. Your mind is the control center of your life. It is the place where ideas are formed, decisions are made, and perspectives are shaped. Everything you see in your external world is first created in your internal world, which means if your mind is limited, your life will be limited. Many people are living with mental programming that was installed years ago, beliefs they never questioned, fears they never confronted, and ideas they never challenged. They have accepted limitations as truth. They have embraced doubt as reality. And without realizing it, they have built a mental environment that restricts their growth. But hear this, you have the power to reprogram your mind. You can choose what you expose yourself to. You can choose what you read, what you listen to, what you watch, and what you think about consistently. And those choices are not small. They are shaping who you are becoming. If you feed your mind with negativity, fear, and distraction, then your thinking will reflect that. But if you feed your mind with knowledge, wisdom, discipline, and purpose, then your thinking will begin to elevate. And as your thinking changes, your life begins to change. Investing in your mind requires intentional input. It requires you to seek knowledge, to study, to learn, to grow. Not just formal education, but personal education. The kind that develops your mindset, your perspective, and your understanding of life. You must become a student of growth. Read books that challenge your thinking. Listen to messages that stretch your understanding. Surround yourself with ideas that force you to think beyond your current level, because growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in challenge. But investing in yourself is not limited to your mind. It also involves your discipline. Knowledge without discipline is wasted potential. You can know what to do and still not do it. You can have the right information and still produce the wrong results. Why? Because information does not change your life, application does. Discipline is what turns knowledge into results. It is the ability to do what is necessary, even when you do not feel like doing it. It is the ability to stay consistent, even when motivation fades. It is the ability to choose long-term growth over short-term comfort. And this is where many people struggle. They want success, but they are not willing to discipline their habits. They want change, but they are not willing to change their routines. They want results, but they are not willing to commit to the process. But you cannot separate results from discipline. Your daily habits are the blueprint of your future. What you do every day is shaping who you are becoming. Small actions, repeated consistently, produce powerful outcomes over time. So, if you want to invest in yourself, you must examine your habits. How do you spend your time? What do you do when no one is watching? What choices are you making daily that are either building you or breaking you? Because whether you realize it or not, you are always investing in something. The question is, are you investing in your growth or are you investing in your distractions? Time is one of your most valuable resources, and how you use it reveals your priorities. If you spend hours consuming content that adds no value to your life, you are not just wasting time, you are delaying your growth. If you avoid opportunities to learn, to improve, to challenge yourself, you are not staying the same, you are falling behind. Because growth is not automatic, it is intentional. Investing in yourself also requires emotional development. You must learn to manage your emotions, not be controlled by them. Because if your emotions control you, they will sabotage your progress. You will make decisions based on feelings rather than principles. You will react instead of respond. You will quit when things become difficult. But maturity is the ability to remain stable, even when your emotions fluctuate. It is the ability to stay committed, even when you feel discouraged. It is the ability to act with wisdom, even when you feel frustrated. And this level of emotional strength does not come naturally. It is developed. It requires self-awareness. It requires reflection. It requires you to understand your triggers, your patterns, and your responses. It requires you to grow beyond impulsive reactions and step into intentional living. Investing in yourself also means valuing your environment. Your environment plays a significant role in your development. The people you spend time with, the conversations you engage in, the atmosphere you place yourself in, all of these influence your mindset and your behavior. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, you will struggle to maintain positivity. If you are surrounded by people who lack discipline, you will find it difficult to stay disciplined. So you must be intentional about your environment. Seek out people who challenge you, who inspire you, who push you to grow. Engage in conversations that elevate your thinking. Place yourself in environments that align with your goals. Because growth is contagious, and so is stagnation. You must choose which one you want to be influenced by. Now let me address something important. Investing in yourself requires patience. We live in a world that wants instant results. People want quick success, fast growth, an immediate transformation. But real development does not happen overnight. It is a process. You will not see dramatic changes in a day, a week, or even a month. But if you stay consistent, if you remain committed, if you continue investing in yourself daily, you will begin to see progress, and that progress will compound over time. The person you become in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, will be the result of the investments you make today. So do not become discouraged by slow growth. Do not abandon the process because results are not immediate. Remember, anything of value takes time to build, and you are valuable, so you must treat your development with patience and persistence. Investing in yourself also means protecting your focus. In a world full of distractions, focus has become a rare commodity. People are constantly pulled in different directions by social media, by entertainment, by noise, by opinions, and as a result, they struggle to concentrate on what truly matters. But if you are going to grow, you must learn to focus. You must learn to say no to distractions and yes to development. You must learn to prioritize your time and your energy. You must learn to stay committed to your goals, even when other things compete for your attention. Because where your focus goes, your growth flows. If your focus is scattered, your progress will be limited. But if your focus is sharp, your growth will be accelerated. And finally, understand this. Investing in yourself is not selfish. It is responsible. When you grow, you become better for others. You become more effective, more impactful, more valuable. Your growth is not just for you. It is for everyone connected to you. But you cannot give what you do not have. So instead of feeling guilty for focusing on yourself, recognize that it is necessary. You are not neglecting others. You are preparing yourself to serve them better. So make a decision today. Decide that you will no longer neglect your growth. Decide that you will no longer settle for average. Decide that you will intentionally invest in your mind, your discipline, your emotions, your environment, and your focus. Because at the end of the day, the greatest return on investment you will ever receive is the person you become. And when you become better, everything around you will begin to reflect that change. Let me speak to you about something that many people avoid, misunderstand, or delay for far too long, and yet it is absolutely essential if you are serious about rebuilding your life. You must separate from what limits your growth. Now, when people hear the word separation, they often interpret it emotionally. They think it means rejection, abandonment, or disloyalty. But true separation is not about hatred. It is about alignment. It is not about thinking you are better than others. It is about becoming who you were created to be. And sometimes, in order to step into your future, you must create distance from what is holding you in your past. You see, growth is not just about what you add to your life. It is also about what you remove. Many people want transformation, but they are unwilling to let go. They want a new life while holding on to old habits. They want a new mindset while staying in the same environment. They want progress without sacrifice, but it does not work that way. Anything that grows must go through a process of pruning. If you have ever seen a tree being pruned, you will notice something interesting. Branches are cut off, not because the tree is dying, but because it is growing. The removal is not a sign of weakness, it is a strategy for strength. By cutting away what is unnecessary, the tree can direct its energy toward what is essential. And the same principle applies to your life. There are things in your life that may not be bad, but they are not beneficial to your future. There are habits that are comfortable but not constructive. There are environments that are familiar but not fruitful. There are relationships that are easy but not elevating. And if you are not careful, you will stay connected to these things simply because they are convenient. But growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in change. Separation requires awareness. You must be honest enough to evaluate what is in your life and ask yourself a simple but powerful question. Is this helping me grow, or is this keeping me the same? Not everything that feels good is good for you. Not everything that is familiar is necessary, and not everything that you have held on to deserves to remain. This is where maturity comes in. Immaturity clings to what is comfortable. Maturity chooses what is beneficial. You must develop the courage to make decisions based on your future, not just your feelings. because your feelings will often try to keep you in places that your purpose is trying to move you out of. Let me be very clear. Some environments will never support your growth. You can have the right mindset, the right intentions, even the right potential. But if you are in the wrong environment, your growth will be limited. Environment influences behavior more than people realize. It shapes your thinking, your habits, your expectations, and even your standards. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, you will have to fight just to stay positive. If you are surrounded by mediocrity, you will struggle to pursue excellence. If you are surrounded by people who lack vision, you will find it difficult to stay focused on your purpose. And eventually, without realizing it, you will begin to conform, because human beings adapt to their environment. So if you want to grow, you must be intentional about where you place yourself. You must seek environments that challenge you, that stretch you, that push you beyond your comfort zone. You must position yourself in spaces where growth is normal, where discipline is expected, and where purpose is valued. And sometimes that means leaving behind environments that once felt like home. That is not easy, because familiarity creates attachment. Even when something is not good for you, you may still feel connected to it simply because it is what you are used to. But hear this, just because something is familiar does not mean it is meant to remain. Growth often requires you to step into the unknown, and that can be uncomfortable. But discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is often a sign that you are doing something new. Separation also applies to your habits. There are patterns in your life that you have developed over time, some consciously, some unconsciously. And these habits are shaping your outcomes. They are either moving you forward or holding you back. You cannot become a new person with old habits. If your habits do not align with your goals, then your goals will remain out of reach. It is not enough to desire change. You must discipline your behavior. This means letting go of habits that waste your time, drain your energy, and distract your focus. It means replacing them with habits that build your discipline, sharpen your mind, and strengthen your character. And let me tell you something, breaking habits is not easy, because habits are comfortable. They are familiar. They require little effort, but growth requires effort. You must be willing to disrupt your routine. You must be willing to challenge your patterns. You must be willing to do what is uncomfortable until it becomes natural, and that takes commitment. Separation also involves relationships. Now, this is one of the most sensitive areas, because relationships are emotional. They involve connection, history, and sometimes deep bonds. But you must understand this, not everyone in your life is meant to go with you to your next level. Some people are seasonal. They were necessary for a particular phase of your life, but they are not aligned with where you are going. And if you try to carry everyone into your future, you will find yourself weighed down. This does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you become wise about how you engage with them. You can love people without allowing them to limit you. You can respect people without adopting their mindset. You can appreciate people without aligning with their habits. But you must set boundaries, because without boundaries, your growth will be compromised. There are people who will not understand your change. They will question your decisions. They will resist your growth. Not because they hate you, but because your transformation challenges their comfort. When you begin to change, it disrupts the expectations people have of you. And some people prefer the version of you that required less of them, that challenged them less, that stayed within their level of comfort. But you cannot shrink yourself to fit into spaces you have outgrown. You must be willing to outgrow people, environments, and patterns that no longer align with your purpose. And that requires courage, because growth can feel lonely. There will be moments when you feel like you are in between, no longer who you used to be, but not yet who you are becoming. You may feel misunderstood. You may feel disconnected. You may even question your decision. But do not confuse loneliness with loss. Sometimes being alone is necessary for your development. It gives you space to think, to reflect, to grow without interference. It allows you to build your identity without external pressure. Solitude is not isolation. It is preparation. It is in those moments of separation that you begin to discover who you truly are. Not who people expect you to be, not who you have been conditioned to be, but who you were created to be. And as you grow, you will begin to attract different people, different opportunities, and different environments that align with your new level. But that will not happen if you refuse to separate from what is holding you back. Separation is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. As you grow, new levels will require new decisions. What was acceptable at one stage may not be acceptable at another. What worked for you before may not work for you now. So, you must remain aware. You must constantly evaluate your life and ask yourself what needs to stay and what needs to go. What is adding value and what is taking it away? What is aligning with my purpose and what is distracting me from it? Because your future depends on your ability to make those decisions. And let me remind you of this. You are not losing anything by letting go of what limits you. You are making room for what will elevate you. Every time you release something that no longer serves you, you create space for growth. You create space for clarity. You create space for opportunity. So do not fear separation. Embrace it, because it is not taking something away from you. It is preparing you for something greater. And if you truly desire to rebuild yourself, you must be willing to let go of anything that stands in the way of your growth. Because you cannot step into a new life while holding on to an old one. Let me bring you to a principle that ultimately determines whether your life becomes meaningful or remains scattered and unfulfilled. You must discipline your daily habits and discover your purpose. These two are not separate ideas, they are deeply connected. Purpose gives direction, and discipline sustains movement in that direction. Without purpose, discipline becomes empty routine. Without discipline, purpose remains a dream. You see, many people desire a better life, but they underestimate the power of daily actions. They are looking for dramatic change, a breakthrough moment, a sudden transformation, but life does not work that way. Your life is not shaped by what you do once in a while. It is shaped by what you do consistently. Every day, you are becoming someone. The question is not whether you are changing. The question is whether you are changing intentionally. Your habits are forming you. The way you think, the way you speak, the way you use your time, the way you respond to situations. These are not random. They are the result of repeated patterns. And those patterns are either aligning you with your future or pulling you away from it. If you wake up without intention, your day will control you. If you live without structure, distractions will dominate you. If you act based on feelings alone, inconsistency will define you. But discipline changes that. Discipline is not punishment. It is training. It is the ability to bring your behavior into alignment with your goals, regardless of how you feel. It is choosing what is right over what is easy. It is doing what is necessary, even when it is inconvenient. And this is where most people struggle, because discipline requires effort. It requires you to wake up when you would rather sleep. It requires you to focus when you would rather be distracted. It requires you to stay committed when you would rather quit. But understand this clearly. Every disciplined action you take is building your future. When you choose to manage your time well, you are building productivity. When you choose to control your thoughts, you are building mental strength. When you choose to follow through on your commitments, you are building character. And over time, these small decisions begin to compound. That is the power of habits. You may not see the results immediately, but they are forming beneath the surface. Just like a seed planted in the ground, growth is happening even when it is not visible. And if you remain consistent, there will come a time when what you have been building internally will begin to show externally. But here is the danger. Inconsistency destroys progress. You cannot be disciplined one day and careless the next and expect meaningful results. You cannot build positive habits and then repeatedly break them and expect stability. Your habits must be consistent if your life is going to be consistent. So you must develop routines that support your growth. Not random actions, but intentional patterns. How do you start your day? What do you feed your mind in the morning? How do you structure your time? What do you prioritize? These questions matter because your routine sets the tone for your life. A disciplined life does not happen by accident. It is designed, and design requires clarity, which brings us to purpose. Because you cannot design a meaningful life if you do not know what you are designing it for. Purpose is the reason for your existence. It is the assignment attached to your life. It is the unique contribution that you were created to make. And until you discover it, you will drift. You will spend your time on things that do not matter. You will chase goals that do not fulfill you. You will pursue paths that do not align with who you are. And eventually, you will feel empty, even if you achieve success by the world's standards. Because success without purpose is unfulfilling. You must understand this. You were not created to simply exist. You were created to function with intention. Everything in life has a purpose. And when something is used outside of its purpose, it becomes ineffective. Imagine using a tool for something it was never designed to do. It will not perform properly. The same is true for your life. If you do not know your purpose, you will misuse your time, your energy, your abilities. You will try to fit into roles that were never meant for you. You will compare yourself to others and try to imitate their path. But purpose is not discovered through comparison. It is discovered through reflection. You must take time to understand yourself. What are your strengths? What are your passions? What problems are you drawn to solve? What impact do you feel compelled to make? These questions are not small, they are revealing, because your purpose is often connected to what naturally flows from you, what energizes you, what you feel driven to pursue, even when it is difficult. And once you begin to discover your purpose, something powerful happens. Your focus becomes clear. You no longer waste time on everything. You begin to prioritize what aligns with your assignment. You begin to say no to distractions. You begin to invest your energy into what truly matters. And this is where discipline and purpose begin to work together. Purpose tells you where to go. Discipline ensures that you keep moving. Without discipline, purpose becomes frustration. You know what you should do, but you do not do it consistently. You start, but you do not finish. You plan, but you do not execute. But when discipline is present, purpose becomes progress. You show up daily. You put in the work. You stay committed, even when results are slow. You continue moving, even when challenges arise. And over time, that consistency begins to produce results. Now understand this. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about persistence. You will have days when you fall short, days when you lack motivation, days when you make mistakes. But discipline is not about never failing. It is about not quitting. It is about getting back on track. It is about recommitting. It is about continuing the process, because the process is what produces the person. You are not just building results. You are building yourself. Every time you choose discipline, you are strengthening your character. You are becoming more reliable, more focused, more resilient. You are developing the kind of mindset that can handle greater responsibility. And that is important because your future will require a stronger version of you. You cannot step into greater opportunities with weak discipline. You cannot sustain success with inconsistent habits. You cannot fulfill your purpose without commitment. So you must prepare yourself. And preparation happens daily, not in big moments, but in small, consistent actions. What you do today matters. What you do tomorrow matters. What you do every single day is shaping your life. So do not underestimate the importance of daily discipline. At the same time, do not rush the discovery of your purpose. Take time to grow. Take time to learn. Take time to explore. Purpose is not always revealed instantly. It is often uncovered through experience, through reflection, through persistence. But as you grow, as you develop discipline, as you invest in yourself, your purpose will become clearer. And when it does, you will begin to live with intention. You will wake up with direction. You will act with clarity. You will move with purpose. And that is when your life begins to transform. Because a disciplined life with purpose is powerful. It is focused. It is consistent. It is meaningful. It is not driven by external pressure, but by internal conviction. And when you reach that point, you will no longer be confused about what to do. You will no longer be easily distracted. You will no longer be easily discouraged, because you know where you are going and you have the discipline to get there. So I challenge you, do not leave your life to chance. Do not drift through your days without intention. Do not wait for motivation to guide you. Make a decision to live with discipline. Make a commitment to discover your purpose. Align your habits with your future. And watch how your life begins to change, not overnight, but over time, in a way that is lasting, meaningful, and powerful. Because when your daily actions align with your purpose, you step into a life that is not only productive but significant. Let me leave you with this, and I want you to carry it deeply, not just hear it, but live it. Your life is not an accident. You are not here by chance. There is something within you that was designed with intention, but intention alone is not enough. It must be developed, protected, and expressed, and that responsibility belongs to you. Rebuilding yourself is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who you were always meant to be. It is about stripping away the distractions, the excuses, the limitations, and the fears that have kept you from stepping fully into your potential. You have heard the principles. Take responsibility for your life. Invest in yourself intentionally, separate from what limits your growth. Discipline your habits and discover your purpose. These are not just ideas, they are decisions. And decisions only have power when they are acted upon. The truth is, most people will be inspired, but very few will be transformed. Because inspiration is easy, it feels good in the moment. But transformation requires commitment. It requires consistency. It requires you to do what is necessary long after the feeling has faded. So the question is not whether you understand these principles. The question is, will you apply them? Because your future is not waiting on more information. It is waiting on your obedience to what you already know. Do not wait for the perfect time. Do not wait for ideal conditions. Do not wait until you feel ready. Growth does not begin when everything is in place. It begins when you decide, and that decision must be made daily. Every day you wake up, you are given an opportunity to think better, to act better, to become better. You can either repeat the same patterns or you can create new ones. You can either stay where you are or you can move toward where you are meant to be. But you cannot do both. There will be challenges. There will be moments of doubt. There will be times when progress feels slow and the journey feels difficult. But do not let that discourage you, because anything worth building requires time, effort, and resilience. Remember this, you are not just building a life, you are building a legacy. And legacy is not created in comfort. It is created in discipline. It is created in sacrifice. It is created in the quiet moments when no one is watching, but you choose to stay committed anyway. You must become that person. The person who does not quit when it gets hard. The person who does not make excuses when it gets uncomfortable. The person who does not settle when they know they are capable of more. Because everything you are looking for, growth, success, fulfillment, impacted, is on the other side of who you are willing to become. So rebuild yourself. Focus on you, not out of selfishness, but out of purpose. Not to prove something to others, but to fulfill what has been placed within you. And when you do, you will discover something powerful. You will not need to chase success. You will attract it. You will not need to force opportunities. You will be prepared for them, because your life will begin to align with your growth. And in the end, that is what truly matters, not what you had, not what you achieved, but who you became in the process. So start today and do not stop.